Sometimes I give these recent B movies starring Bruce Willis a chance, even though I know that he just does them to make the money and struggles to really act well because of his aphasia condition. The problem, guys, however, is that this movie is depressingly bad. It is easily the worst action movie I've ever seen, and Bruce has been involved in some of those recently, like Gasoline Alley, A Day to Die, and White Elephant. These three are not exactly the cream of the crop, but this movie gotta be the worst action movie I've ever seen. There are problems all over, and from start to finish, you just realize that this is a low budget action movie that never hits the mark. The first problem is tied to the characters. The only real good character here is Oliver Trevenant. This Irish crook in the story is really good, and one man that makes the story a little enjoyable. Sadly, he is the only one that gives you entertainment here, and all the other characters are just not what you want to see in an action movie. Another problem, you see, is when you watch the action scenes. It is not the only action movie that does it these days, but they are very stripped down. During the shootouts, you don't see any intensity, and the people getting shot just fall down like flies. That's not what you want to see when you see an action movie. You want the scenes to keep you on the edge of your seat, and this movie is nothing like that. In this one, you see some action scenes, but every time you get a scene of action, it is cut so short that it's just plain depressing. Moreover, you see very little dynamic in the story. What I mean by that is that the story mostly happens in one place. That is not necessarily something you can't make interesting, but it is often harder when you, for the most part, just have the main character sitting alone in a room full of computers. You had a movie like this that worked much better, called Hot Seat. This one reminds you of that movie, but it was made in a way that excited the viewer a lot more. There's just not a lot to the story. You have heard about dirty cops and drug cartels so often in action movies that it just sounds weak. Actually, Kevin Dillon also played lead in that movie, Hot Seat. But then there were also other characters around him that could lighten up the movie a little more. Because let's face it, this is a bleak movie. As for Bruce Willis, also, he is barely in it. But actually, I feel it might have been better if he was more active in the action scenes. Because of his condition and advancing age, I understand that it is difficult to achieve. But that just speaks to the lengths of how bad this action movie really is. That's why, in other words, it is simply the worst action movie you should never watch.